Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me. And we are going to be talking about fermented foods that can help with constipation and diarrhea. And nobody really wants to talk about constipation and diarrhea, but I get so many emails about it. And it's something that everybody sooner or later deals with sometime in their life. And I have had so many people, including myself, my family members, find help with these ailments that despite most people not wanting to talk about elimination, it's really something that can be your best teacher if you know how to look for and to help your body with it. So it's an important thing to understand why it's happening. And it's something that can really help bring awareness to what's going on inside your gut and inside your body, inside your colon, and it helps you to make changes that can really help with all those types of problems. So one of the very first people that I ever told about kefir was an older man who was in his 70s, and he had been on constipation medication for over 10 years. And when he first tried kefir, he came to me almost in tears. After 1 week on kefir and after years of medication and not having regular bowel movements, he was finally free and having movements every day and sometimes twice a day. And he was so excited. His words to me were moving and life-changing for him and for me because I didn't know it could do that because it was the very beginning when I first started trying kefir. And I suggested to him that I thought it would help him because it had made all of us, it had made such a difference in elimination for all of us. And I had no idea that it could do that. But fast forward a couple decades later, and so many people have found relief from this ailment, that the signs from their body that they were struggling with, whether it be constipation or diarrhea. So my husband drinks kefir every single day for this very reason. He said without kefir, he gets constipated. And so every morning before he heads to work, he has a glass of kefir. And, it's funny because we got a new puppy and he went in the truck with him the other day. And when my husband got out of the truck, he had his glass of kefir in the truck. And we got out of his truck. Our new dog named Dobby, had drinking all of his kefir out of his cup and had the cup stuck on his nose. It was hilarious. So he goes, I have to get a different cup with a lid to take my kefir in the truck in the morning. So it's really interesting to me. A lot of the reason that kefir is so effective is, first of all, it has a lot of calcium, but it has a lot of magnesium. It also has a lot of B vitamins, B12, but the magnesium is so much more absorbable when you drink a kefir because it's pre-digested. It allows the body to assimilate it easier, and magnesium is a very important key component for elimination. And most people, I would say 80 to 90% of the population, is low in magnesium because a lot of our soils are depleted of this really important mineral. I think magnesium is the only real thing that I supplement with because I have a problem with hanging on to magnesium, and I always have, and it keeps my blood pressure low to have it. It is just something that I've always taken, for 30 years. And so because I know that I get deficient in it, and I have a lot of kefir, but I think I even need more than what's in the kefir. So that's an important thing. And I have a whole article years ago when I had my kids. I think one of the reasons I had problems with preeclampsia was because my blood pressure would get so high, and they would put me on a magnesium drip, and that would keep my blood pressure low. And I thought, well, if they're putting me on a drip of this, then I must be deficient in it. And I started doing a lot of research, and I'm going to put that description for the article I wrote about the mineral that saved my life, because it really did. When I was pregnant and I was in the hospital, and they put me on that magnesium drip, and it allowed my body to calm down. And then after I had the baby, I started researching more about magnesium, and it's really important. And so if you want to read more about that or want to understand more about magnesium, I will put that link description below so you can read that article and find out all the ways you can get magnesium in your life, because it's really important and most people are deficient in it. And kefir is one of the ways you can get it, but often you'll need more than what's in kefir if you're deficient like me. So I'll link that and you can read more about it. Okay. So let's talk about constipation. So constipation happens in your large intestine, and this long muscular tube heads up your gut's job to absorb water and flush out waste. And if this movement doesn't happen, then the waste just sits in there for too long and stools become hard and difficult to pass. And it also is not good for you to have it staying in your colon for long periods of time. And your microbiome contains a diverse collection of trillions of microbes and of bacteria that helps to break down food and regulate your bowel function. So bacteria is responsible for that. And when you're constipated, it may be a sign that there's an imbalance between friendly bacteria and the bad bacteria in your large intestine, or a lack of microbes due to your diet, lack of fiber and prebiotics, or if you've taken a lot of antibiotics, this has wiped out a lot of the good bacteria, and that you've harmed the balance of beneficial microbes. And if you don't have enough of the beneficial microbes, then things like candida can take hold and other pathogenic bacteria. And so constipation is a good sign that you need more of those trillions of good bacteria. So constipation, diarrhea, upset stomachs, or pain when you eat is always a sign that your gut is struggling and needs your help. And these symptoms can develop, especially after you have had an antibiotic or any other medication, because a lot of medications can disrupt your microflora. And there's always a sign that your gut's out of whack if you're having any of these symptoms. And cultured foods they are across the board one of the best balancers to these types of symptoms. And I have so many stories of this on my Lives Touch page of people getting help from adding these foods to their diet. And a lower pH or a more acidic colon enhances movement. So one way that kefir helps is by lowering the pH in the colon via short-chain fatty acids like butyrate and proponic acid and lactic acid, and that lower pH or a more acidic colon enhances movement. So you really want that in your colon. People are always talking about alkaline versus acidic, but in your colon, you want that movement. You want your colon to be a certain pH so it will move those things along. Now, there was a study done in Japan with mentally and physically handicapped residents of a nursing home and who were all struggling with constipation. Glycerol enema, which is they call GA abbreviated, is used to treat constipation in these patients. And the administration of GE not only causes mental and physical stress to handicapped people, but also causes physical damage to the nurses who try to administer it. So kefir or fermented milk they started giving them kefir or fermented milks ingested 3 times a day for about 12 ounces a day. And that's about what I drink a day. And for 3 months, they wanted to see if it could prevent constipation. And they found that 4 out of the 11 patients showed improvement in bowel movements with the administration of GE, that's the enema that they gave them. And the study was carried out with a highly limited number of subjects. And the results implicated that adding kefir to the daily diets of handicapped people had many benefits for constipation. Even though further studies are required, the study suggested that the oral intake of kefir contributed to the reduction of the physical labor of nurses spending so much time trying to administer it, and also contribute to the increase in the quality of life for handicapped people. So they really did see that the ones that weren't getting the enemas anymore, 4 out of the 11 people started to change without having the enemas anymore. So, and I have the link in the description below if you want to read more about that. And it happened very rapidly, actually. Now, there was another study in the Turkish Journal of Gastroenterology in 2014, I believe, and it studied 2 groups of patients. 20 consecutive patients with functional constipation were divided into 2 groups based on their colon transit. And 500 milliliters a day of fermented kefir was administered to all patients for 4 weeks. The first group of 10 had normal transits, and the second had slow transits or constipation. And the patients themselves kept daily records. And at the end of the study, all the patients showed an increase in stool frequency. Their stool frequency increased. The consistency improved, the colon transit time improved, the bowel satisfaction scores improved, and laxative use decreased greatly. Okay, so let's talk about diarrhea now. So, researchers have studied fermented foods' effect on gut problems for many years. And many studies found that fermented milk eased symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome. And I personally saw that when my daughter, when she was 16 many years ago, she struggled with IBS. Fermented foods brought her so many benefits by changing the gut bacteria, and also allowing her to have less allergic reactions to food and better transit time. They also provide increased vitamins and nutrients that may be lacking. Fermented foods appear to relieve diarrhea that what people often suffer with after they have antibiotics, because antibiotics disturb the balance of gut bacteria and then diarrhea can follow. And the billions of probiotics in fermented foods appear to restore the balance and ease diarrhea. One specific probiotic that does a really good job of this is Saccharomyces Boulardii, and it's a very powerful probiotic that cannot be killed by antibiotics. And the reason being is that S. Boulardii is a probiotic yeast. So we need not only good bacteria, but we also need good yeast as well to keep us in balance. And I talk a lot about this particular probiotic yeast because I think it's so important for people. And when I first discovered that S. Boulardii was in kombucha, I was helping a friend who had acute diarrhea, constant diarrhea, and nothing else would work. I did more and more research on this powerful probiotic only to find the benefits from making and consuming kombucha. S. Boulardii is one of the most thoroughly researched of all probiotic supplements, and it's now used to treat C. diff, acute diarrhea, antibiotic-associated diarrhea, some parasitic forms of diarrhea, and other gastrointestinal disorders. S. Boulardii can also act as a decoy to harmful pathogens. It attacks and binds with those pathogens and keeping them from attaching to the intestinal wall and doing damage. Many people have expressed how much kombucha has helped them with chronic diarrhea, and it seems to be the only thing that really worked for them. And it's really just a fermented tea and not a drug that can have the adverse side effects that drugs can have. And S. Boulardii is absent from your natural gut since it's a transient yeast, and it passes through the intestines after ingestion. If taken every day, it provides a steady stream in the colon within 3 days, and it is cleared from the stools 2 to 5 days later. It does not attach to the mucosal lining, but works its magic on you as it moves through the gastrointestinal tract. When S. Boulardii is present, it inhibits toxins from binding to intestinal receptors, and it steals the metabolites or their food it needs to survive. Thus, many pathogens pass out of the body unable to survive in the presence of this powerful probiotic. They even found that other pathogen strains like E. coli, Salmonella, and other ones adhere to the surface of S. Boulardii, thus preventing them from attaching to the mucosal lining and passing through the body and rendering them harmless. So it's kind of cool. It kind of takes those pathogens out, so it doesn't cause a lot of the stress on the body that other things can do, because sometimes when things like Candida die, they give off 80 different toxins. Whereas with S. Boulardii, it attracts these pathogens to it, so it takes it out of the body before they can die. It just exits the body and doesn't have the die-off symptoms that other types of things, like it happens when you have antibiotics. When you take an antibiotic, it kills the bacteria, so then the bacteria kind of gives a die-off and makes you feel crappy or gives you diarrhea. S. Boulardii is different. It just takes the metabolites out of the body with it because it's a transient good yeast, so it's a lot easier on you to have it work this way. Now, cultured vegetables help too. Lactobacillus plantarum is a powerful probiotic found in cultured vegetables. I talk about it all the time. I write about it, and it can improve constipation and diarrhea. And fermented vegetables are pre-digested and loaded with beneficial bacteria that has done some of the work for you. Adding a spoonful of fermented vegetables updates your inner ecosystem with billions of beneficial bugs. Lactobacillus and bifidobacteria are recognized as beneficial species with various health-promoting functions, such as the production of short-chain fatty acids, which is really important. And it stimulates the intestinal paralysis of the wall, so it helps transit time immensely. A large randomized controlled trial demonstrated that the intake of Lactobacillus plantarum and bifidobacteria was able to significantly relieve the evacuation disorders, and hard stools in patients with constipation. And Lactobacillus plantarum is abundant in cultured vegetables and can prevent gastrointestinal side effects like diarrhea, and especially in antibiotic-treated patients who are struggling because of that from taking antibiotics. Plus, it helps to repopulate the gut. Now, here's something else I want to talk to you about. Bone broth and gelatins. Another thing that can greatly soothe your gut and help with healing is to consume bone broth and gelatin. Bone broth and gelatins are exceptionally healing for the mucosal lining of the wall of the gastrointestinal tract. It contains special amino acids that assist in the repair of the gut wall, help to bring nutrients that are sorely needed to the body. And these foods can help with leaky gut syndrome, who often have the porous intestinal lining. And gelatins and bone broth can help heal those types of holes up in the lining, and it can help resist chronic diarrhea, constipation, and even some more food intolerance. And I love bone broth and gelatin, and there is so much that I have learned about it. Another thing that gelatin does is it helps you sleep because glycine is the main amino acid that's in gelatin. It's in collagen too, but it's a little bit more abundant in gelatin, but it is very powerful anti-inflammatory, huge, in a big, huge way. And I have a little bit of it before I go to bed. I have a little square gelatin. I have these homemade gelatin recipes, and I'll link that in the description below. I've got a whole blog on it. But if you're having trouble with sleep, you really need to consider making some homemade gelatin, or any kind of gelatin will help you sleep because of the powerful ability the glycine has on the neurotransmitters in your brain, but also it's an anti-inflammatory for your entire body. It's awesome. And there's so much more. I need to do a whole article on it. I love it so much. But anyway, that's besides the subject. So now, another thing I want to talk to you about is a healing crisis. Something that can occur when you start eating cultured foods is called a healing crisis. And this can sometimes be accompanied by constipation or diarrhea that is usually short-lived. When you first start ingesting cultured foods, the body is literally flooded with billions of probiotics that want to kill the pathogens inside of you. So a lot of extra debris can accumulate in the colon as the body tries to shed all the waste of the die-off, which can give you diarrhea or constipation. So if this occurs, then you need to have a lot of water and a lot of fiber, like psyllium husk can be really helpful in removing unwanted debris in the colon. And these organisms can be bacteria, viruses, fungi, or other harmful pathogens. And the medical term for healing crisis is a Herkimer reaction. And this can happen after you take an antibiotic. It's just a change in the microflora because these types of things, like I said before, are dying off. These cells, when they die off, release toxins into the circulation, and the body is not able to eliminate them quickly enough. And besides containing massive amounts of beneficial bacteria, cultured foods also contain active enzymes, which help as extreme potent detoxifiers. So there's a huge amount of good bacteria in cultured foods. And it's really, guys, it's like sending in an army to clean a house inside of you. And it's a good thing, although it can create a little bit of uncomfortableness and be a bit scared if you don't understand what's happening. So I have a whole article on the healing crisis in cultured foods, and I will link that in the description below. So the 3 foods that I recommend are kefir, kombucha, and cultured vegetables. They all do different things. Some of them, I think kombucha is really effective with diarrhea, but I also think it's really good to have as a mainstay in your diet to keep things in balance, to help eliminate pathogens and things like that. Kefir is wonderful for constipation. I have so many people tell me that it's eliminated their need for any kind of medication. And cultured vegetables do work on both. So I highly recommend you try them. I have linked below. I'll tell you how to make the trilogy, or you can buy it at health food stores. Whatever way you do it, I just want you to get better. And I want you to see these foods in your life as these helpful, food-like medicines foods that are delicious. They can become a part of your life, but they can change your life because when you have these problems, instead of reaching for medication, you can reach for these foods. And it can make all the difference in your health. It's easier on the body. The body knows how to deal with it. And it can bring balance to your body. And it can bring balance to your life because then you know, oh, if I have this problem, I can take this. If I have this problem, I have to do this. And I do it so regularly that I don't even think about it. As far as, there are different foods I use for different things. If, I'll use ginger kombucha for any kind of if I have a headache or anything like that, because ginger's powerful and kombucha's powerful for helping with that. I have foods that I use for colds or flus. I have foods that I use for any kind of stomach distress. I use cultured vegetables for that. All these foods do different things. So it's really fun. And I have a couple hundred health articles on the different things that I've used and how there's a lot of science to back it up now. So anyway, these are just things that help you. I want to help people learn to take care of their bodies in ways without having to use medications that always come with side effects, but to use food as a source to help their microbiome thrive, because when your microbiome thrives, not only does your body thrive, but your mind is clear, you have more peace of mind, you feel less anxiety, and you just feel great. It gives you a sense of well-being that you can't otherwise have if your microflora is out of whack. So that's kind of my job. It's the things that I've learned through the years, and I hope I can share it with you to help you. So I hope this has helped you, and you can check out all the links. I'm going to put a bunch of links in this one, just so if you want more information, you can check on it. And I'll put some information on how to make or buy these foods so that you can get some things going and keep them in your fridge and always have them ready available when you need them. So have a great week, guys, and thanks for listening, and I hope to see you next Tuesday.